Do you feel selfish asking for your own needs to be met? Does it feel too much like rocking the boat in asking for what you want or need? How is it that we're really good at this professionally, but it gets so much trickier in our personal lives? That's what I want to unpack today. And maybe we can start with our professional lives. If you're in a senior leadership or executive role, there's no question that you're very comfortable holding people accountable. There's every chance that you've terminated the employment of individuals along the way. We learn in business that the investments that we make in people or things have to deliver value. And when they don't, then we know what changes we need to be made. We sit within particular frameworks. We can be rewarded for those frameworks. But when it comes to our personal lives, they can get so much harder and so much more complex. And there's some reasons for that. I think where the clash can often come is when we hit this point of midlife, when our needs and wants start to get clearer and we want to act on those. And yet we're held in our tracks on that. We have to struggle our way through them in a different way, perhaps. And it's a space that I have worked with a number of people on. I think there are many contributing factors in this space and reasons for it. I think first as men, we're socialized into particular roles that don't always align with our own wants and needs. I think often the headlines point to females as being far less selfish, as not being able to have the time for themselves. And I think that's absolutely true. I think that there is a sense of many women acting as caretakers and not taking out time for themselves. I think is a very different space for men. We are socialized to be providers and protectors, and I know so many men that take pride in those roles. We are taught to be stoic, to be the problem solvers, that we simply take whatever lands to our lap and it's up to us to fix it, to carry it, to take it, and not complain about it. We simply get on with it. And that's why it becomes very tricky when we are moving forward with our own wants and needs. These are sometimes a little bit less logical. They don't always sit perfectly in analysis. And yet some part of us knows that they are the right thing for us. And more in midlife, you're going to find that these are the things that emerge, that we move away from the external achievements, from the role-based accolades, and start to want more meaning and depth in our lives. And that sense of self gets stronger and starts to exert itself more. And this is where we feel that tension. We know that something has to change. We start to want to live in a different way. And doing so can often mean moving into an uncomfortable place to get there in the meantime. So we may discount that for ourselves. We may simply fall back into that role of worrying about others and not worrying about our own needs, putting our own needs aside, sacrificing, because that's what we've done our whole lives, is put others ahead of us because we saw that role for ourselves as a man. And then when we do find the courage to enter into some of those difficult conversations, I think we have to be prepared and understand some of the dynamics that can surround some of those more complex conversations. We are sometimes moving into a space where we are disturbing the equilibrium of a relationship. We are sharing something uncomfortable. We are pointing out something that maybe isn't working for us. And I think I'm also aware of what psychologist Harriet Lerner calls the change back move, where I may take steps towards something that's important to me, something that is purposeful and meaningful for me. And somebody else, consciously or unconsciously, may take an action that tries to convince me to come back to my old behavior. Because any time that we make changes that affect somebody's identity, somebody's sense of status quo, somebody's responsibilities, they may push back on that. They may try and convince us to go back to where we were because it's more comfortable for them. And this is where it really takes understanding ourselves and staying grounded within ourselves to do what is right for us, even if it feels uncomfortable along the way. There's a lot of popular culture and media around men being labeled as selfish or narcissists when they want to do the right things for themselves, particularly in divorce media. There is a real sense of, as they start to move towards their own needs and wants, it disturbs that equilibrium. They are accused of not caring about their family. They are accused of not taking care of their responsibilities. It taps into all of those societal and all of those stereotypical roles and socialized roles, and it pushes us back into that corner. It pushes us back into that provider and protector role. It pushes us to put our own needs aside and instead show up and put on that brave, stoic face instead. And it can be tricky to work with. I think we have to be really grounded into the sense that just because the process is uncomfortable, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the wrong decision for ourselves. We have to understand what is meaningful and purposeful for ourselves. Sometimes we'll make others uncomfortable in the process. Sometimes others may have resistance to that. And it's up to us to sit with that discomfort and know that it will work its way through. Sometimes people's reactions are their initial reactions. We may have been contemplating and sitting with something for a long time, and it may come as a shock to somebody else. They may need their own time to sit with it, to process it, to understand it, to bring back their own sense of what they need. And now you're able to actually at least negotiate and find a place. But where we see it show up in terms of making changes to the career that we have, asking for our needs to be met in a different way, or choosing a new kind of connection within a relationship, or sometimes acknowledging that a relationship is pretty far off course and its overall viability and sustainability is questionable. These are really vulnerable and discomfort-inducing areas to talk about. We can't always land and lean on our analytical brains to present a perfect set of facts. We have to own our emotions. We have to own some of our gut instincts. And we won't perfectly be able to point to them, but if there's a piece that I would encourage for you, is that your emotions are yours to own. They are a valid and important truth for you, and not to discount them. Nobody can tell you that your experience and your wants and needs are wrong, because they're yours and yours alone. So don't be pushed back into something that doesn't feel right to you, only to keep the peace. Maybe this is setting a boundary with somebody else. Maybe this is realizing somebody within your social circle or extended family needs to take more responsibility. It's time for them to grow up, and you're no longer going to enable them. Of course they're going to push back. They would be far more comfortable if you continue to enable them in whatever it is that they're doing. And so you have to hold your ground. You have to sit in that discomfort. You have to be prepared to rock the boat. And I also really want to distinguish selfishness versus being self-focused. Selfishness is prioritizing our own needs above others with really no consideration for the needs of others. Whereas self-focused really does look at our own needs and wants. It does look at the needs and wants of others. And it has us choose our own needs and wants because there's something really important in them. That may require discussion or negotiation, but I think the key difference is that where we can be accused of being selfish, there is an assumption that we haven't given consideration to the needs of others. And more often, I would say what I see in men is they have given extreme amount of consideration to others. And this can be the barometer for yourself. This can be a good test of truth for yourself. When you're having to move forward with a difficult decision, Are you only looking at your own needs, in which case it may not be the right decision? It may be indeed selfish if you are not giving consideration to others. But if you've really thought about what is purposeful, what has meaning for you, what the path that feels like the path that you need to take is the right one, and recognize that it could have an impact on others, but that impact is less than the impact of not standing in your own truth, then you're not being selfish. In fact, you're being self-focused. For me, recently, I've really had to give some thought to some of my digital nomad experiences. I have paused before kind of finishing those bookings and making the decision to go forward with it. There was fears within me around, was I being selfish? Was I being self-indulgent? Was I simply being frivolous in that decision to go and spend 4 or 5 or 8 weeks in a different country or a different part of the world? And ultimately what I had to reconcile for myself was, no, in fact, there was very little impact to others in terms of me making that decision for myself. And regardless of what other people thought, it felt very aligned for me. It was some of the reason that I chose to leave my corporate career, was to have more enriching experiences. And one of the things that struck me was a few people kept calling it a vacation for me. And I had to keep reminding them that, in fact, I was overseas, but I was still working and getting to enjoy the local culture, the local sites, just a different way of being. And that was the key differentiation for me, that this wasn't simply having vacation time. This wasn't simply shirking my responsibilities and going and drinking margaritas at an all-inclusive for 6 weeks. This was going to another big city and learning about it and learning about myself and knowing how enriching and how much fulfillment I get from being able to experience a different culture, being able to experience living in another country. And so ultimately I was able to determine that this wasn't selfish, this wasn't frivolous. This was making a choice that felt right for me, that represented my wants and needs, and I was prepared to act on that. And the moment I could solidify into that, the opinions of others stopped mattering. Whether somebody wanted to judge me for it, whether somebody was jealous and projecting it on me, it didn't matter anymore, because I could feel that alignment, and I knew in my gut that I was making the right decision. So you can expect that this is a path and this is territory that you will be experiencing and you will be navigating and negotiating as you move into this midlife space. And recognizing that as that sense of self gets more and more crystallized, as you get to know yourself and seek out a life that is worth living, of being able to choose the path that you won't regret 10 years from now, and also really just not putting up with things that you no longer want in your life. It's going to require some courageous decisions, and your compass in making those courageous decisions are really knowing that it's aligned for you, knowing that you have thought about the needs and wants of others, but simply because there could be some reactions, because there could be some discomfort in being able to move forward on those decisions, doesn't mean that you shouldn't be moving forward with them. Don't stay stuck where you are, because it's that staying stuck. It's putting others ahead of you. It is burying your own needs and wants and burying a sense of purpose for yourself that creates that burnout, that exhaustion, that sense of disengagement, that flatness in your life. If you want the life worth living, if you want to live life on your own terms, you will always have some degree of compromise, but this is also your chance to start making those course corrections, to start making the difficult choices that ultimately are going to pay off for you, that ultimately you're going to be so glad that you did 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So I hope that's helpful. I hope this helps give some better discerning in being able to make those decisions and gives you some of the map and territory, but more importantly, gives you that courage to move forward with what you know you need to move forward with. You can find more information on my website and in the show links below. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.